Hey everyone, welcome to This Must Be the Place. I'm Dr. DeCubellis, and today I'm joined with Alan Stern from McGrath Lexus. First, thanks for stopping by.
Yeah, I appreciate you. Thanks for doing this.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, so even as a doctor, I get this question from my patients, and because when we have when they're in the office, they ask me questions, we talk, we have conversations, and a lot of times they'll say, I'm thinking about buying a car, but I'm not sure if maybe leasing might be a better option. I don't really know what to tell them. What is the difference between buying and leasing? How do you know what makes sense? Just what's the difference between buying and leasing?
Great question. And just at a very simple 5th grade level, let's say that you're buying a car, all right? I'm just going to use a $50,000 product because I sell luxury cars. Let's say that you're going to buy a new car.
Okay.
Option A, write a check for the full amount. Option B, take a loan out. At that point, it's your car or it's the bank's car until you finally pay it off. Now, think of leasing as rent to own. When you buy, you can either commit to spending $50,000 up front or take a loan out, or you can pay for what you use first based off of the amount of miles that you put on and the time that you keep it. So really what leasing is it's rent to own. Lease with the option to buy. You get to drive the car within the best years of its life under the full warranty, if not the majority of the time if you drive a ton of miles, and then with all the facts in front of you. When you know the price of gas, the reliability of what you just bought, what you were driving, you know what's new on the road, if you want hybrid, if you want gas, if you want electric, or most importantly, if you even want the car, at the end, you're able to make that decision if you want to own it.
And it makes sense too, because let's say you do a lease term for 3 years. And the end of 3 years, your life could have changed. Technology could have changed, and you decide, I'd like to get a newer technology, a car with a newer technology in it. You just kind of never know what's going to happen. So you're almost with leasing, you're saying, hey, I want this, I like this car, I'd like to have it for at least 3 years, but after that time, I can decide whether I want to keep it or I want to just go into something new. If you buy the car, you're saying, I'm committed to this car. And if you want to get a new car for 3 years, then you have to go through the whole process again, buying a new car, trading it in. So it kind of depends on what you're looking at, if you want to make that commitment or you don't. But tell me this, if you want to, one thing that could be different, if you want to buy a car, right? Let's say you drive it for a year and then you want to get a new car. If you're in the middle of your lease, you can't do that, can you?
You can. Again, great question. So just to keep things simple, let's say that you bought a car and you financed it. Let's just use 72 months because that's what most people are going for. And 2 years goes by and you want to get out. Very easy. What you do is you would call up the bank that you financed with and you would get the payoff. That's step one. Step two, you have the car appraised. Depending on if you put any money down or if you didn't, you may be underwater, which means the car is worth less than what you owe on it, or there's a chance that you might have equity. Now, same scenario, let's say that you did a 3-year lease, but you'd like to get out in 2 years. Call up the leasing company, see what the payoff is, and have the car appraised. Now, since we're on that topic, it's important to know things changed about 6 months ago with a lot of manufacturers in leasing, where they actually stopped third-party lease buyouts. Give you an example. So I worked for a Lexus dealership. Lexus and Toyota didn't do this, but let's say that you leased a BMW and 2 years go by, you got a year left on the lease and you want to get out. In order for you to get out of that, the only dealership that would be able to buy that, unless you buy it, would be a BMW store. However, what you can always do on a lease is you can buy it, pay the taxes on it to own it, so it's no longer the BMW financials car, it's Mike's car, and at that point you can do whatever with it.
Interesting. Now, another question when it comes to lease, because at the end of your lease term, you can turn it in, lease something else, buy something, or you can buy that car, correct?
Right.
So how do people know when let's say they're signing up for a lease today, how do they know what they're going to be available to purchase it for when the lease is up?
That amount's disclosed up front. So if you ever hear the term residual value, that's what it is. Just keeping things really simple. Let's say that you lease that $50,000 car and the residual value at the end is $25,000. You got the option to buy it at the end for $25,000 plus your taxes, which vary depending on where you live. Now what's cool about that, and a lot of people are taking advantage of that in this market, let's say that the residual value at the end is $25,000, but the car's worth $30,000. Cool, you just made $5,000 if you want to sell it. Let's say that on the other hand, the car's been in an accident, there's hail damage on it, for whatever reason they discontinue that model or any other factor that would negatively affect the resale value. Instead of that, a residual, let's say it's still 25, let's say the car is worth 20. Don't buy it. Walk away from it, give it back to the leasing company, and then they take the loss.
That's really interesting because now when you start thinking about, purchase versus lease, when you purchase it, you don't have any guarantees of what you can sell it for in 3, 5, 6, 10 years, whatever it might be. But with a lease, you know exactly what you could be able to purchase it for, and you can make really an informed decision and when that time comes up. So really something to kind of think about as to whether you want to buy or you want to lease, because there's lots of different options, but really it just comes down to your specific situation, I think.
100%. I'll give you an example. What we find is a lot of people that purchase the cars nowadays, and they know that they're going to keep them 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years. They buy an extended warranty or a service contract, whatever you want to call it. If you lease a car, you're under the original warranty the whole time, and if you drive a ton of miles, you're under it the majority of the time. So at that point, that's several $1,000s in an extended warranty that you don't have to worry about buying because it's already included. The other thing too is gap insurance is standard on a lease, which means let's say that your car gets totaled, it gets stolen, and the balance is $40,000, but insurance only wants to give you $30,000. If you bought the car in that scenario, you'd be on the hook for the other 10 grand if you didn't have gap insurance. However, gap insurance is included on almost every lease.
That's really nice to know. So there's really a lot of things that go into it. So it's one of those things you have to ask yourself what's important, what are you looking for? Because some people just don't like changing cars every couple years. Some like to keep it for the lifetime of the car. Other people do like to get that newer thing all the time. And in which case, if you're buying a car and you want to trade it in every 2, 3, 4 years, maybe lease makes more sense because you have that option.
Here's another thing too, is not only are you protected with everything that I just mentioned on a lease, there's a couple ways that you can really take advantage of it. So just using that scenario, let's say that a customer historically financed the car, bought it, traded it every 2 or 3 years. There's a really, really good chance that unless they had put money down on those loans, they're going to be underwater. So the car is worth less than what they owe on it. Let's say that you're $5,000 to $10,000 underwater on a car. If you were to try and carry that balance and not put any money down on a new car that you're looking to buy, a lot of banks that wouldn't approve you. However, let's say that you take that same scenario, you're $5,000 to $10,000 negative on a car, but you do a lease. First off, any money additional that you do put down on a lease would lower that payment. So let's say that you were to wash yourself out, put $2,000, $3,000, $4,000. At the end of your 3 or your 4 year lease term, all that negative equity goes away.
Wow, that's pretty interesting.
I just use that example because after 11 years in the business, I've unfortunately seen some really bad situations where people are $15,000 to $20,000 underwater on a car. And let's say that they bought something and took a loan out for as long as possible, so 72 or even 84 months, and they did not buy gap insurance. And that car just for whatever reason got into a wreck, it got totaled, it got stolen, whatever it is, they'd be in a really bad situation.
Yeah.
Whereas all that on a lease, standard.
Yeah. The thing is, again, there's so many good things that come with leasing. There's also great things that come with purchasing too. But knowing what they are can help you kind of make the decision as to which one is going to be right for you. Because there's definitely, for most people, I think once they start kind of going through their kind of wish list, their checklist of what they want, one does become a little bit more of an obvious, better decision than the other one. And then if they're in the middle, then maybe some conversations need to be had.
For sure. Would you like me to clear up a couple misconceptions on leasing in this video, or should we do it in another one?
You know what? I think that's a great segue to the next video that we're going to do.
Cool. I see what you did there.
Yeah. So thank you for watching. His contact information is going to be below. Alan is very, very knowledgeable in all of this. So get in contact with him if you have any questions on anything we talked about today. But stay tuned for the next video because we're going to go more in detail on this subject.